The wind screamed across the frozen plains of Vexus Prime, carrying ice crystals that cut like tiny knives. Taiho pulled his thermal coat tighter and checked the scanner one more time. The readings were strange. The local wildlife had gone silent, and that was never a good sign on a death world. He spoke into his communicator. "Mireille, are you seeing this?" "Everything just vanished from the bioscanner." Static crackled back at him. Then Mireille's voice came through, tense and quiet. "Get back to the outpost. Now." Jiwan detected movement on the perimeter. Big movement. Taiho started walking faster, his boots crunching through the snow. The research outpost was only half a kilometer away, but on Vexus Prime, distance meant nothing. This planet killed the careless in minutes. He could see the lights of the base ahead, warm and promising against the endless white. Then the lights went out. Taiho stopped walking. His heart hammered in his chest. "Mireille? Jiwan?" Someone respond. Silence. Not even static this time. Dead air. He started running. The explosion hit before he made it halfway. A ball of fire erupted from the outpost, turning night into day for 3 seconds. The shockwave knocked Taiho off his feet and sent him tumbling through the snow. His ears rang. His vision blurred. When he pushed himself up, the outpost was a burning skeleton of twisted metal. Something moved in the smoke. Something massive. Taiho's blood turned to ice water. They were 9 feet tall, covered in dark scales that seemed to absorb light. Their eyes glowed yellow in the darkness. Their arms ended in claws as long as kitchen knives. There were at least 6 of them, moving through the wreckage like they owned it. Rakther, the galaxy's apex predators. The species that conquered through fear and force. One of them was holding something. Taiho's stomach turned. It was Hyunwoo. The young pilot wasn't moving. The Rakther dropped him carelessly into the snow like garbage. Taiho heard screaming. Mireille. She was running from the outpost with G1 right behind her. They were heading for the emergency transport, a small hover sled they kept for evacuations. 2 Rakther moved to intercept them. They weren't running. They were walking, casual and confident. This was a game to them. A hunt. Taiho should have stayed hidden. Every instinct screamed at him to dig into the snow and disappear. But Mireille was his friend. They had spent 3 years together in deep space. She had pulled him from a crashed shuttle once. She had listened when his sister died and he couldn't stop crying. He grabbed a piece of debris from the explosion. Something metal and sharp and charged. The scream that came from his throat didn't sound human. It was raw and animal, stripped of everything except rage and fear. The nearest Rakther turned, surprised. Taiho swung the metal piece with everything he had. It connected with the creature's face. Scales cracked. Black blood sprayed. The Rakther roared and backhanded him. Taiho flew 6 feet and hit the ground hard enough to crack ribs. Pain exploded through his chest. He couldn't breathe. The world spun, but Mireille and Jawan reached the hover sled. The engine roared to life. They were going to make it. Then a Rakther threw something. A weapon spinning end over end. It struck the hover sled's engine. Sparks flew. The vehicle crashed into the ice and flipped, throwing both women into the snow. Taiho forced himself to stand. Blood filled his mouth. One of the Rakther was walking toward Mireille, who lay stunned and helpless. The creature raised its claws. HEY! Taiho screamed. He threw the metal debris at the Rakther's head. All 6 of them turned to look at him. Yellow eyes fixed on this small, bleeding human who kept making noise. One of them made a sound, something between a growl and a laugh. The largest Rakther, covered in old scars, gestured to the others. They stepped away from Mireille and Jawan. They wanted him instead. Taiho understood immediately. They were bored with easy prey. He had hurt one of them, shown defiance. Now they wanted to see how long he could run. How long before he broke. He ran. Toward the outpost. Not toward his friends. He ran into the frozen wilderness, away from everything, drawing the predators with him. Behind him, he heard Mireille screaming his name. But he couldn't stop. If he stopped, they would go back and finish what they started. The Rakther followed. He could hear them behind him, their heavy footsteps crunching through ice. But they weren't running. They were pacing him, letting him tire himself out. This was entertainment. Taiho's side burned. His ribs grated with every breath. His lungs screamed for air. The cold was eating through his coat. He had maybe an hour before hypothermia killed him, less if he kept running this hard. He reached a cluster of broken rocks and ice formations, the frozen remains of some ancient geological event. The terrain was rough, full of crevasses and unstable ice sheets. Taiho scrambled through it, using his smaller size to slip between rocks that the larger Rakther had to climb over, but it wasn't enough. They were faster, stronger, built for this. One of them got ahead of him, cutting off his path. Taiho skidded to a stop. He turned and saw the others closing in from behind. 5 of them now, forming a loose circle. The scarred leader stood directly in front of him. Taiho's legs shook. His vision blurred from exhaustion and pain. Blood dripped from a dozen cuts, staining the white snow beneath him in dark red patterns. He should beg. Plead for mercy. That's what Prey did. Instead, Taiho picked up a sharp piece of ice and held it like a knife. His hand trembled, but his eyes didn't leave the leader's face. The Rakther made that laughing sound again. This little human, barely able to stand, was threatening them with frozen water. Adorable, pathetic, the leader gestured. 2 of the younger Rakther moved forward, claws extended. They would make this quick. The human had provided enough amusement. Taiho watched them come. His mind raced through options. He had no weapons, no armor, no backup, just a body that was already failing and a piece of ice that would shatter against their scales. But humans didn't survive the African plains by being stronger than lions. They survived by being meaner, by refusing to die, by making every predator regret the hunt. The first Rakther lunged. Taiho didn't try to block. He dove forward under the claws and drove his ice shard into the creature's throat where the scales were thinner. Black blood erupted. The Rakther made a choking sound and stumbled backward. The second one grabbed Taiho from behind, claws digging into his shoulder. Taiho screamed as his flesh tore. But he twisted in the grip, ignoring the pain, and kicked backward at the Rakther's knee joint. Something crunched. The creature's grip loosened. Taiho fell forward into the snow. His shoulder was destroyed, hanging useless. Blood poured from the wound, hot against the frozen ground. He tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't work anymore. The scarred leader stepped forward, staring down at him. The amusement was gone from its eyes. Now there was something else. Something calculating. Taiho looked up at the massive predator looming over him. He spat blood into the snow and bared his teeth. Come on then, he whispered. The Rakther raised its claws for the killing blow. The claws stopped inches from Taiho's face. The scarred Rakther leader tilted its massive head, studying him. The human was broken, bleeding into the snow, barely conscious. But those eyes, they still held fire. The leader made a gesture. The other Rakther stepped back, confused. They had earned their kill. This prey had wounded 2 of their pack. Custom demanded blood payment, but the leader, whose name was Kralax, had hunted for 40 cycles across 20 worlds. He had seen thousands die. Most went quietly at the end, accepting their fate. Some ran until their hearts burst. A few fought back with desperate panic. This human did none of those things. This human fought with something Kralax recognized from his own species. Pure spite. The refusal to give an enemy satisfaction. Kralax lowered his claws and stepped back. He spoke in the Rakther tongue, his voice a deep rumble. Let him rest. Then we continue. The younger Rakther hissed in protest. One of them, blood still leaking from his throat wound, wanted to tear the human apart immediately. But Kralax was pack leader. His word was law. Taiho didn't understand their language. He only knew they weren't killing him yet. That meant they wanted something. More sport, probably. Let him catch his breath so the hunt could continue. Fine, he would use it. Taiho pressed his good hand against his destroyed shoulder, trying to slow the bleeding. His thermal coat was soaked through, useless. The cold was seeping into his bones. In the distance, he could still see the glow of the burning outpost. Mireille and Jiwan were out there somewhere. Were they alive? Had they managed to hide? He couldn't think about that. If he let himself hope, let himself care, he would fall apart. Right now, he needed to be nothing but survival instinct. The Rakther were watching him. 5 sets of yellow eyes, glowing in the darkness. Waiting to see what he would do, Taiho forced himself to his knees, then somehow to his feet. His legs shook like branches in a storm. Blood dripped from his fingers, each drop hitting the snow with tiny impacts that seemed impossibly loud. He took 1 step forward, then another. Not away from the Rakther. Toward them, the confusion in their posture was obvious even across species. Prey didn't approach. Prey ran. Taiho bent down and picked up another piece of ice with his good hand. His makeshift weapon from before was gone, shattered against Rakther scales. This one was smaller, less sharp. It would have to do. Kralax made a sound, something approving. He gestured to his pack. They spread out, giving the human room. This would be interesting. The youngest Rakther, eager to prove himself, charged first. He was fast, faster than anything Taiho had ever seen. Claws extended, mouth open, showing teeth like broken glass. Taiho didn't try to dodge. Instead, he threw himself forward inside the Rakther's reach. The claws whistled over his head. He drove his ice shard upward, aiming for the soft flesh under the creature's jaw. He missed. The ice scraped along scales and shattered. But his forward momentum carried him past the Rakther. Before the creature could turn, Taiho kicked at its ankle, using all his remaining strength. The Rakther stumbled. Just 1 step. But that step landed on a sheet of ice covering a crevasse. The ice cracked, broke. The Rakther flailed, trying to catch itself, but gravity pulled it down. It vanished into the darkness with a roar that ended in a wet crunch. 4 left. Taiho swayed on his feet. Black spots danced in his vision. He had maybe 1 more move in him before his body gave out completely. The remaining Rakther weren't laughing anymore. 2 of their pack were down. This wasn't a hunt. This was a fight. Kralax stepped forward himself. He was done letting the young ones play? This human had earned death from the pack leader's own claws. Taiho knew he couldn't win this. Kralax was bigger, stronger, and covered in scars that told stories of 100 victories. But winning wasn't the point anymore. Making them remember him was. Kralax circled left. Taiho turned to follow, keeping his eyes locked on the massive predator. His peripheral vision was fading. Tunnel vision, a sign of massive blood loss. Minutes left, maybe, then Kralax moved. A blur of motion, impossibly fast for something so large. Claws swept toward Taiho's chest, aimed to disembowel. Taiho fell backward. Not a dodge, just his legs finally giving out. The claws passed through empty air. Taiho hit the ground on his back. And in that instant of Kralax being off balance from the missed strike, Taiho kicked upward with both feet, his boots connected with Kralax's knee. It was like kicking a tree trunk. Nothing happened, except Kralax had been standing on ice. And Taiho's kick, weak as it was, shifted his weight just enough. The Rakther leader slipped. He didn't fall, but he took 2 quick steps backward to catch himself. Those 2 steps put him next to Taiho's blood trail. The snow there was melted and refrozen, slick and treacherous. Kralax's foot slid. He went down on 1 knee. Taiho didn't think. There was no time for thought. He rolled onto his stomach, crawled forward, and grabbed a rock from the frozen ground. Sharp edges, heavy enough to do damage, he swung it at Kralax's face with his 1 working arm. The rock connected with the Rakther's eye. Not hard enough to seriously injure, but hard enough to hurt. Kralax roared and threw Taiho away like a doll. Taiho flew through the air and crashed into the snow 10 feet away. He didn't get up this time. Couldn't. His body was done. Everything hurt or was numb, and he wasn't sure which was worse, but he had done it. He had drawn blood from the pack leader. Even if it was just a scratch. Kralax stood slowly. Black blood dripped from the wound above his eye. He walked toward Taiho, each step deliberate. The human lay in the snow, chest barely rising and falling. Dead or dying. Finally finished, Taiho's vision was going dark. He could see Kralax approaching like a shadow against shadows. This was it. The end of the hunt. Strange how calm he felt. He had expected to be terrified. Instead, there was just tiredness and a weird sense of pride. He had made them work for it. He had hurt them. They would remember the human who refused to be prey. Kralax stood over him. The other three Rakther gathered around, forming a circle. This was usually when they made the kill ceremonial, marking their victory, but Kralax didn't raise his claws. Instead, he looked down at the small, broken human lying in a pool of his own blood. The human's eyes were still open. Still aware, still defiant even in death. Something shifted in Kralax's mind. A memory from his youth, before the stars when his people were still bound to their home world. They had rivals then. Other predators who fought for territory. Those battles were different from hunts. In hunts, one side was always prey. In those ancient battles, both sides were predators. Both sides were worthy. Kralax made a sound, deep in his chest. His pack members knew that sound. It was the recognition call. The sound they made when acknowledging an equal, then Kralax did something no Rakther had done to another species in recorded history. He lowered himself to one knee beside the dying human. Taiho's fading consciousness registered the movement. The massive predator was kneeling. In the snow. Beside him. Next to his blood he didn't understand. Couldn't understand. But he saw the other Rakther, one by one. Take a knee as well, 4 apex predators, creatures who bent entire star systems to their will. Kneeling beside a broken human in the snow. Taiho tried to speak to ask why, but his voice was gone. His vision collapsed to a pinpoint. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was Kralax's scarred face, yellow eyes staring down at him with something that might have been respect, then nothing. Myre watched from behind the ice ridge, her hand clamped over her mouth to keep from screaming. Yuan crouched beside her, face pale with shock. They had followed Taiho's blood trail through the snow, expecting to find his body. Instead, they found something impossible. The Rakther were kneeling. All 4 of them, including the massive scarred one who was clearly their leader. And Taiho lay in the center of their circle, surrounded by his own blood, not moving. We have to get him, Myre whispered. Her voice cracked. Yuan, we have to wait. Yuan grabbed her arm. Look at them. Really look. Myre forced herself to focus past her panic. The Rakther weren't celebrating. They weren't preparing to eat their kill. They were just kneeling there, silent, like they were paying respects. The scarred leader reached down and carefully lifted Taiho's body. Gentle, almost reverent. Then he stood and began walking, not toward the destroyed outpost, but toward a cluster of lights in the distance. A Rakther ship? They're taking him, Jiwan said. They're taking him to their ship. Then we follow. Myre was already moving, keeping low behind the ice formations. G1 caught up with her. That's suicide. If they see us, they already saw us. Myre pointed to tracks in the snow. Rakther prints circling around where they had been hiding after the crash. They let us live. They chose to hunt Taiho instead of finishing us. I need to know why. They followed at a distance, 2 humans trailing 4 apex predators across a frozen wasteland. It should have been impossible. The Rakther could have killed them at any moment, but the aliens never looked back. They walked with purpose, carrying Taiho's body like it was something precious. The Rakther ship was built for war. All sharp angles and dark metal, designed to intimidate. The boarding ramp lowered as they approached. Lights spilled out, harsh and bright against the snow. Myre and Jiwan stopped at the edge of the light, knowing that going further meant capture. But the Rakther leader paused at the top of the ramp. He turned and looked directly at them. Those yellow eyes found them in the darkness with no effort at all. He made a gesture. Not threatening, beckoning. He's inviting us in, Jiwan said, disbelief in her voice. He's actually inviting us onto their ship. Myre didn't hesitate. She walked forward into the light, hands visible and empty. Guan followed, though every survival instinct she had was screaming at her to run. Inside the ship, the Rakther had already laid Taiho on a medical platform. Strange devices extended from the walls, scanning his body with blue light. One of the younger Rokther, the one with the throat wound Taiho had given him, was operating the equipment. His movements were careful, professional. "They're healing him," Jiwan whispered. "They're actually trying to save him." The scarred leader approached them. Up close, he was terrifying. 9 feet of muscle and scales and old violence. But he moved slowly, deliberately, giving them time to adjust to his presence. He touched a device on his wrist. When he spoke, the words came out in heavily accented but understandable human language. "Your pack member. He fights well. Honor demands we preserve him." Mireille found her voice. "Why? You attacked us?" "You killed Hyunwoo." "You were hunting us?" "Yes." The Rokther showed no shame. "We hunt. It is our nature. But your pack member, he did not die like prey. He fought like—" The translator struggled for a moment. "Like equal. Like hunter." "His name is Taiho," Mireille said. Anger cut through her fear. "And he's a scientist." "A researcher. Not a hunter." The Rokther made a sound that might have been amusement. "All predators are scientists. We study prey. Learn patterns. Your Taiho studied us while fighting. Learned our movements. Used environment. Used our expectations against us." He gestured to his wounded eye. "Made us bleed. Made us work for victory. This is not prey behavior." Jiwan stepped forward. "So what happens now? You save him and then what? Start hunting again?" "No," the certainty in the Rokther's voice was absolute. "Hunt is finished. When prey becomes hunter, they are no longer prey. They are rival. Respect is owed." He touched his chest with one massive claw. "I am Kralax, pack leader. I witnessed your Taiho's courage. I acknowledge his strength. By law of my people, he is under pack protection now." "Pack protection?" Mireille shook her head. "What does that mean?" "It means he is Rokther." Kralax said it like it was obvious. "Not by birth, by deed. He earned status through combat. This is highest honor we can give." The medical platform beeped. The young Rokther operating it spoke in their native tongue. Kralax responded, then turned to the humans. "He lives. Injuries are severe but not fatal. He will recover." Mireille felt tears burning her eyes. She had been holding herself together through sheer will, but hearing that Taiho would survive broke something open inside her. She sat down hard on the floor, shaking. Jiwan remained standing, her commander training keeping her focused. "What about us? Are we prisoners?" Kralax considered this. "You are pack members of one who earned honor. You have status through association. You are not prisoners. You are ... guests." He seemed unsure of the word over the next hours. Mireille and Jiwan stayed by Taiho's side while Rokther medical technology worked on his broken body. The aliens gave them space but watched with obvious curiosity. Occasionally, one would approach and ask questions through the translator. Questions about humans. About Earth, about how prey species became starfaring. The young Rokther with the throat wound introduced himself as Velkin. He seemed fascinated by Taiho specifically. "When he attacked me, I thought he was desperate. But he was not. He was calculating. He knew exactly where to strike." "How did he know our weak points?" Yuan managed a tired smile. "Taiho's is a biologist. He studies alien life forms. Understanding anatomy is his job." He weaponized his knowledge. Velkin's eyes gleamed with approval. "This is warrior thinking. Your species claims to be peaceful, but you train your people in how to kill us." "We train them to understand you," Jiwan corrected. "What they do with that understanding is their choice." Velkin made that rumbling sound of amusement. "Understanding is weapon." Your Taiho proved this. 3 days passed. Taiho remained unconscious, his body healing under Rokther medical care that was surprisingly advanced. Mireille barely left his side. She watched his chest rise and fall, watched the color slowly return to his face. On the 4th day he opened his eyes. Mireille was there immediately. "Taiho, can you hear me?" He focused on her face. His voice came out as a croak. Did we die? Is this some kind of weird afterlife? You're on a Rakther ship. Myray helped him sit up slightly. It's a long story. Taiho looked around, saw the alien medical equipment, saw Jiwan standing guard near the door. Then he saw Kralax entering the room, and every muscle in his body went rigid. Easy, Myray said quickly. He's not going to hurt you. They saved your life. Taiho stared at the massive Rakther who had tried to kill him days ago. Kralax approached the medical platform and looked down at him. For a long moment neither spoke, then Kralax placed his clawed hand over his chest and lowered his head. A gesture of respect. Taiho didn't know what to say, didn't know what to think. His last memory was dying in the snow, surrounded by predators. Now he was being treated like what? An honored guest? A fellow soldier? I do not apologize for Hunt, Kralax said. We are what we are, but I acknowledge your strength. You fought with honor. You are worthy. Taiho's throat was tight. You killed my friend, yes. Kralax showed no shame or remorse. In battle, death comes. But you showed us something we did not expect. Humans are not what we believed. And what did we believe? Jiwan asked from the doorway. Kralax turned to face her. That you were prey playing at being predators. That your technology made you seem strong, but you were soft underneath. He looked back at Taiho. He proved us wrong. Soft things do not fight like that. Do not refuse death like that. Taiho closed his eyes. Everything hurt. His shoulder was wrapped in something that felt organic, pulsing warmly against his skin. His ribs ached with each breath. But he was alive. Impossibly, stubbornly alive. What happens now? He asked. Kralax's answer would change everything. Now, Galaxy learns truth about humans. And we decide what that truth means. The video spread through galactic networks like fire through dry grass. 15 seconds of footage from a Rakther biorecorder. A small human, covered in blood, standing against 4 massive predators. The human charging forward despite obvious injuries. The Rakther kneeling beside his broken body in the red-stained snow. 15 seconds that changed everything. On the human diplomatic station orbiting Proxima. Soman received the file at 0300 hours. She was the junior cultural liaison, which meant she got the overnight shift monitoring alien communications. She expected the usual traffic, trade negotiations, territorial disputes, scientific exchanges. She did not expect to see a Rakther. Kneeling to a human, her hand shook as she forwarded the file to her superior. With a message marked urgent, then she watched the video again. And again. Each time, the same questions burned in her mind. Who was this human? Why were the Rakther showing respect? What did it mean? By morning, every human in the diplomatic corps had seen it. By afternoon, it had leaked to civilian networks. By evening, it was the only thing anyone in human space was talking about. Soman found herself in an emergency conference with officials she had only seen in training videos. Admiral Daeyeon, head of Human Defense Forces, appeared on screen looking like he hadn't slept in days. We need confirmation, he said without preamble. Is this video genuine or propaganda? It's genuine, sir. Soman pulled up her analysis. The metadata checks out. It's from a Rakther military biorecorder. They don't fake these. It's against their honor code. Then we need to know who this human is and what exactly happened. Daeyeon leaned forward. Because if the Rakther are showing respect to one of us, it changes the entire balance of galactic power. The investigation took 3 days. The destroyed research outpost on Vexus Prime was identified. Personnel records pulled. Survivors located aboard a Rakther vessel. When Soman read Taiho's file, she felt something shift inside her. He wasn't a soldier, wasn't trained in combat. He was a xenobiologist who liked poetry and sent money home to his mother every month. An ordinary person who did something extraordinary. The Rakther Council made first contact before human leadership could decide on a response. They sent a delegation to human space for the first time in 70 years. Not to threaten or demand? To negotiate? Soman was assigned as translator because she was one of the few humans who could speak basic Rakther. She stood in the conference room, trying to keep her hands from shaking as 5 massive predators entered. Krelax was among them, the scarred leader from the video. He looked around the room with calculating eyes, assessing threats and exits and weak points. Then his gaze settled on Soman. "You speak our language," he said in Rakther. "Poorly, but yes." Soman forced herself to stand straight. "I am Soman, cultural liaison. You study us." It wasn't a question. Like Taiho studied biology, humans learn about threats, smart. The lead human negotiator, an older woman named Ambassador Park, stepped forward. "Let's begin. You attacked one of our research outposts, killed one of our people. By rights, this is an act of war." Krelax showed his teeth. "By rights, it was hunt. We owed you nothing. You were prey on world we claimed, and yet you're here to negotiate." Daeyun's voice came through the communicator. "Which means something changed your mind. One of your pack changed our mind." Krelax gestured and a display activated, showing the full recording of the fight with Taiho, not just 15 seconds. 20 minutes of brutal combat. The humans in the room watched in silence. They saw Taiho fight with intelligence and desperation, saw him use the environment, exploit weaknesses, refuse to submit even when dying. By the end, several people were crying. "We thought humans were weak," Krelax said when the video finished. "We thought technology made you strong, but you had no spirit. No warrior heart. He proved us wrong." Ambassador Park gathered herself. "One person proved you wrong. That doesn't explain why you're here. One person shows what species can be." Krelax touched his chest. "In our history, we fought other predators for dominance. Those wars taught us respect. When rivals show strength, you do not destroy them. You make alliance. Together, hunting pack is stronger. You want an alliance?" Park's surprise was obvious. "The Rakther don't make alliances. We make one now." Krelax's voice held absolute certainty. "Because we saw truth. Humans are predators who forgot they are predators. You chose building over hunting, creating over destroying. But when threatened, you remember." Taiho remembered. Soman translated this for the others, though most of the humans present understood through their implants. The implications were staggering. An alliance with the Rakther would give humanity protection and status they had never dreamed of achieving, but Daeyun asked the hard question. "What does this alliance cost us?" "The Rakther don't give respect freely." Krelax's eyes gleamed. "It costs what all alliances cost. Mutual defense, shared technology, cultural exchange, and one thing more." "What?" "Acknowledgement of what you are." Krelax gestured to the video of Taiho fighting. "Your people hide this. Pretend to be peaceful scientists and artists. This is lie. You are warriors who choose peace. But choice means you can unchoose. Galaxy must know this." Ambassador Park shook her head. "Many humans won't accept that identity. We've spent centuries moving past our violent history. Then they are fools." Krelax showed no sympathy. "Predator who pretends to be prey will be eaten. Predator who acknowledges nature but controls it will be respected. Choose." The negotiations continued for weeks. Soman found herself spending hours with the Rakther delegation, learning their customs and teaching them about humanity. She was surprised by how much they wanted to learn. Velkin, the young Rakther that Taiho had wounded, was especially curious. He asked endless questions about human history, culture, and warfare. When Soman showed him records of human conflicts, he studied them with the intensity of a scholar. "Your species fought itself for thousands of years," he observed. "Tribe against tribe, nation against nation. The violence was constant." "Yes." Soman felt shame admitting it. "We're not proud of that history. Why not?" Velkin looked genuinely confused. "You survived it, learned from it, grew past it. This shows strength, not weakness. But so many died. So much was destroyed. And now you reach for stars." Velkin gestured to the station around them. You turned warrior energy into exploration, took hunting instinct and aimed it at knowledge. This is evolution. This is worthy of pride. Soman had never thought of it that way. She had been taught to view human history as a shameful thing to overcome. But Velkin saw it as a foundation that made humanity stronger. Meanwhile, in another part of the station, Taiho was recovering under human medical care. His wounds were healing well thanks to the Rakther treatment, but the psychological impact was harder to measure. Soman was given permission to interview him. She found him staring out a viewport at the stars, his arms still in a regeneration sleeve. Taiho? I'm Soman. I've been working with the Rakther delegation. He turned to look at her. His eyes held something she couldn't quite identify. Sadness? Anger? Acceptance? I saw the video, he said quietly. The one that's everywhere. Is that really me? Yes, I don't remember most of it. Just fragments, pain, fear, anger. He touched his wounded shoulder. I wasn't trying to be brave. I was just trying to survive. That's what made it meaningful. Soman sat down beside him. The Rakther respect you because you didn't give up. Even when you should have died, you kept fighting. I got Hyunwoo killed. Taiho's voice cracked. If I hadn't screamed, hadn't drawn their attention, they would have killed all of you anyway. Soman spoke gently but firmly. You gave Mireille and Jiwan a chance to survive. And you showed the galaxy that humans aren't easy prey. That matters, does it? Taiho looked back at the stars. I just wanted to study alien biology, understand other species. Now I'm some kind of symbol for human violence, not violence. Resilience. Soman chose her words carefully. The Rakther don't respect violence alone. They respect the will to survive. The refusal to submit. You embodied something they thought was unique to their species. Taiho was silent for a long moment. Then, what happens now? Do I go back to being a researcher? That's up to you. Soman pulled up a display showing the current negotiations. But the galaxy has changed. And whether you want it or not, you changed it. She showed him proposals for joint human Rakther exploration missions, research programs, military training exchanges, cultural initiatives, all of it stemming from those 15 seconds of video. They're building a memorial, she added. On Vex's Prime, where you fought? They want to mark the spot where two predator species recognized each other. Taiho stared at the design. A simple monument of stone and metal with his bloodstain preserved under clear crystal. It looked like a grave marker. I'm not dead, he whispered. No, Soman met his eyes. But the old assumptions about humanity are, and sometimes that's what monuments are really for. 6 months after the incident on Vex's Prime, a ship departed from human space carrying an unusual crew. 20 humans and 20 Rakther, the first joint military unit in galactic history. Among the humans was Minseo, a young woman who had watched the video of Taiho's fight and felt something awaken inside. She had been a student of ancient human history, fascinated by warriors and battles from Earth's past. Most of her peers thought it was a morbid interest, something best left forgotten. But after Taiho's fight became public, everything changed. Suddenly, people wanted to understand that part of humanity again. Minseo enlisted in the new program immediately. Not because she wanted to kill, but because she wanted to understand what Taiho had tapped into. That ancient human stubbornness that refused to accept death. The training facility was built on a neutral moon, harsh enough to be challenging, but not deadly. When Minseo first saw her Rakther training partners, fear locked her muscles. They were massive, armed with natural weapons that could tear her apart, but they didn't attack. They waited, watching to see what she would do. Her instructor, a scarred Rakther named Talvin, approached her. You are afraid. Good. Fear keeps you alive. But you are here. Also good? Fear that stops you is weakness. Fear that moves you is strength. The training was brutal. The Rakther held nothing back, treating the humans as equals rather than protected students. Bones were broken. Blood was spilled. 3 humans quit in the first week. But Minseo stayed. So did 16 others. She learned that the Rakther respected resilience above all else. If you got knocked down and stayed down, they lost interest. But if you got up, even when you shouldn't, they pushed you harder. Tested you more. It was their way of showing respect. Minseo sparred with Velkin, the young Rakther that Taiho had wounded. He was faster and stronger, but she learned to use her smaller size as an advantage. Learned to predict his movements and exploit the split-second openings. Better, Velkin said after she managed to land a hit on his jaw. You fight like pack member now. Not like prey. The humans and Rakther began to mesh. They shared meals, though the dietary differences made that interesting. They told stories about their homeworlds. They learned each other's languages and customs. It wasn't always smooth. Cultural clashes happened. A human named Junho nearly started a diplomatic incident when he tried to apologize to a Rakther he had accidentally injured during training. Apologies were seen as admission of weakness by Rakther. The proper response was to acknowledge the injury and move on, but slowly, understanding grew. The Rakther learned that human kindness wasn't weakness, but a different kind of strength. The humans learned that Rakther aggression wasn't cruelty, but honesty about their nature. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other species watched this alliance with confusion and concern. Humans had always been viewed as harmless, useful for their technology and trade, but not a threat. Now, aligned with the Rakther, that perception was shattering. Some species tried to exploit the uncertainty. Pirates raided a human colony, thinking they could strike before Rakther protection arrived. They were wrong. The joint unit, including Minseo's squad, responded within hours. Minseo would never forget that first combat mission. Dropping from orbit onto a colony world, adrenaline and fear mixing in her blood. The pirates were a species called the Krenth, known for their brutality and slave trading. The battle was chaos. Minseo's training took over, moving her body through motions she had practiced 1,000 times. But this was real. When a Krenth raised a weapon toward her squadmate, she didn't hesitate. She fired. The Krenth fell. Minseo's hands shook. She had just killed someone. Ended a life. The weight of it hit her like a physical blow. Then Velkin was beside her, pulling her into cover as return fire scorched the air where she had been standing. Focus, he growled. Process feelings later. Survive now. He was right. Minseo pushed the horror down and kept fighting. The joint unit moved like a single organism, humans and Rakther supporting each other's weaknesses and enhancing each other's strengths. The pirates, expecting easy targets, found themselves facing coordinated predators. The battle ended in less than an hour. The pirates fled or surrendered. The colony was saved. That night, sitting in the barracks, Minseo finally let herself feel what she had done. Tears came, and she didn't fight them. Taking a life, even to save others, wasn't something that should be easy. Velkin found her there. You regret killing enemy? No, Minseo wiped her eyes. I regret that it was necessary. There's a difference, yes. Velkin sat down beside her, his massive form making the human furniture creak. This is why your species is interesting. Rakther do not regret necessary kills. But you do. You wish galaxy was different. This is ... idealism? Is that word? Yes, it is weakness and strength together. Velkin seemed to be working through a difficult concept. You fight well because you wish you did not have to fight. Rakther fight well because we enjoy it. Different paths. Same result? Does that make us allies or opposites? Both. Velkin showed his teeth in what might have been a smile. This is why alliance works. News of the battle spread. A joint human Rakther unit had defended a colony with 0 casualties on their side. The pirates had been crushed. Other potential aggressors took note. More species began treating humans differently. With caution. With respect. Some resented it, claiming humans were hiding behind Rakther's strength. But others saw the truth. The alliance was making both species more effective. On Vex's Prime, the memorial was completed. It stood at the exact spot where Taiho had fought, a simple structure of black stone with his blood preserved in crystal at its center. Inscribed in both human and Rakther languages were the words, Here, prey became hunter. Here, rivals became pack. The dedication ceremony brought together leaders from dozens of worlds. Taiho attended, still uncomfortable with his status as a symbol. He stood beside Kralax, the Rakther who had tried to kill him and then saved him. "I never wanted this," Taiho said quietly as speeches were made. "I just wanted to study life on other worlds. And now you have." Kralax gestured to the gathering of species around them. "You studied how life responds to threat. Your species, mine, all others here, they watch and learn. Learn what? That strength comes in many forms." Kralax looked down at the human beside him. "Rakther are strong in body and will. Humans are strong in adaptability and resilience. Together we are stronger than apart. This is lesson you taught with your blood." Mireille found Taiho after the ceremony. She hugged him tightly, careful of his healing shoulder. "You did it. You actually changed everything. I didn't mean to. The best changes are the ones nobody plans." Ji-Wan joined them, looking older but stronger than before. "Han-Wu's family asked me to give you something." She handed Taiho a small data crystal. When he activated it, Hyun-Wu's voice played, recorded before the mission. "If you're hearing this, I'm gone. Don't blame yourself. We all knew the risks. Just promise me you'll keep studying the stars. Keep learning about the universe. That's what matters." Taiho closed his eyes, tears streaming down his face. Around him, humans and Rakther stood together, no longer separated by the ancient barrier between predator and prey. Both predators. Both survivors. Both reaching for the stars. The new joint exploration ship launched 3 days later. It was named the Persistence, after humanity's ancient hunting method. Minseo was part of the crew, along with Velkin and dozens of others who had proven themselves in training and combat. Their mission was to explore beyond the known galaxy, to find new worlds and new life, to face whatever dangers existed in the dark between stars. As the ship accelerated away from Vexus Prime, Minseo looked at the memorial shrinking in the viewport. That spot of frozen ground where everything changed. Where one human refused to die quietly and rewrote the rules of the galaxy. "What are you thinking?" Velkin asked, settling into the station beside her. "That Taiho was wrong," Minseo said. "He said he just wanted to survive. But I think part of him wanted to show the galaxy what humans really are. And what are humans?" Minseo smiled. "We're the species that crossed oceans in wooden boats. That climbed mountains just to see what was on top. That stood up to extinction and said, 'Not today, we're survivors, explorers, warriors when we have to be.' And now? Now we hunt stars instead of prey." Minseo activated the navigation console, plotting a course into unknown space. "And we have the perfect hunting pack to do it with." Behind them, Vexus Prime fell away. The snow that had been stained with Taiho's blood was frozen forever in crystal, a reminder to every species in the galaxy. Humans were no longer prey. They had never really been prey at all. They had just forgotten, but they remembered now. And the galaxy would never forget again. The Persistence jumped to faster-than-light speeds, carrying its crew of humans and Rakther into the unknown. 2 predator species, once enemies, now allies, hunting not for meat or territory, but for knowledge and wonder. And in the cold darkness between stars that made all the difference.